kind of running out of things to say. I mean, I thought it was another poor performance, although Russell Martin came out after it and insists the performances are getting better. I mean,
I'd like to know on what that is based, Daniel, and I say that for a reason. I believe the Americans are very obviously data-driven, stats-based, all that. Are they looking at something that's telling them that, some algorithm that's telling them, yep, that's marginally better? Are they basing it upon, well, they only lost 2 goals against Sturm Graz and it was 6 in Bruges? Is that the stat that they're basing it on? What basis do they think the level of performances are improving and on an upward trajectory? Because I can't see it. I see nothing about Russell Martin's team now that's even remotely close to what it was that he said he was going to try and implement. There is no style. They're making this big thing about, and he said afterwards today about, it's not just about winning, you need to win in a certain way. There's nothing about Rangers. There's no strategic way of playing that's been implemented. In fact, it's quite the opposite. All the changes, the inverted fullbacks, all the stuff that he kind of talked about and what we saw in the very early days, that's all gone. He's reverted to type. He's reverted to players that he didn't want in the team in the first place. They're now his go-to guys. I heard him talk about Connor Barron. I wish I would have given him more games earlier. This is a man that's absolutely grasping for some sort of life belt, and it's not working. He's drowning. I don't know how many more times we can say it, but this is the critical bit, and this is, I've just written a column for tomorrow's paper, Dan, and here's the key to this. What does Andrew Cavanagh, the new owner and self-appointed chairman, absentee landlord, if you like, what is his view on all of this? Where is he? Why is he not fronting it up? What message, if any, does he have for the supporters? He cannot any longer adopt the ostrich position on the other side of the pond and sit and do nothing and say nothing. Even if his view is that he doesn't have to do anything, he should at least come out and speak to the Rangers fans, take ownership of this. Because, and this is where I actually feel quite sorry for Russell Martin, is that he is front and centre. He is, same as Brendan Rodgers has been talking about at Celtic, nobody else is coming out and owning it and taking responsibility. So every time that there's a message that has to get delivered, it's coming from Russell Martin. The Rangers fans don't want to hear anymore from Russell, none of this is my fault, Martin. They're fed up with it. So they don't want to hear it. What they need to know is, what is the sense of direction here? And if Andrew Cavanagh has decided, and it's a point of principle or a point of policy, that Rangers shouldn't chop and change, that they've made their bed and they're going to lie in it with Russell Martin, then come out and say so. Because what you've got right now is a guy that every time he's pushed out into a press conference says, Russell, will you resign? Will you be sacked? So Andrew Cavanagh can clear that up. And he should do. I think he, and I've said it many times, I do believe that this change of ownership was absolutely required. I do believe that Andrew Cavanagh will put a lot of time and passion and effort and ultimately cash into this. And I do believe that he'll probably get it right somewhere down the line. But the mistakes that are being made here are horrendous. The PR around the Rangers Football Club right now is a disgrace. And to the point that you've got the appointment of Kevin Thelwell's son in one of the most key important roles in the football club, head of recruitment, because they've talked about the importance of the player trading model. Putting a 26-year-old kid that just happens to be related to the sporting director into that position, and it almost feels, as I said last week, like it's an act deliberately designed to antagonise the Rangers support. Where is Andrew Cavanagh in all of this? One can only assume that Andrew Cavanagh signed off on that idea, that Kevin Thelwell doesn't have the authority to go and appoint his own son in such a key position without at least running it past the owner and the chairman. So if Andrew Cavanagh thinks that's a good idea, again, there's a responsibility and an onus on him to come out and explain why. Because how does Kevin Thelwell explain it? Just trust me on this one, he's great in Football Manager. He's been brilliant since he was 12. It's a nonsense. It's an absolute nonsense And to the point that there is some sympathy now for Russell Martin. How many times can you ask the guy? Look, you heard the chants. They don't want you here. Yeah, I realise that. Well, do something about it. And he kept referring today to, I'll keep on doing it until I'm told I'm not required anymore. So again, he's actually, in that answer alone, almost screaming out, Andrew Cavanagh, where are you? Come out and say your bit. If you're backing him, come out and back him. If you're sacking him, just get on with it and sack him.
Before I bring you in, Swanee, and get your take on Russell Martin and Rangers, we've got plenty of comments coming in already. If you're watching at home, you want to get involved in the conversation, please do so. Not just on Rangers and Celtic, but all of the games from the Premiership weekend. Let me read out a few of these. Colin says, I'm a true blue for 50 years. He's the worst manager ever. John says, never mind getting rid of Martin. It's Thelwell and Stewart that need to go first, as they'll be in charge of bringing in the next manager. Another disaster waiting to happen. Davey says, least attempts against Falkirk this season thus far. Surely it's the end for Martin. William echoes your sentiments, Keith, saying about time we heard from the owners, as this is a disaster under Stewart and Thelwell. And Annette simply says, surely Russell Martin will be sacked. And just finally, our old pal Alistair Ramage thinks it's all James Tavernier's fault. Tavernier, we'll see you off, Martin. You have to admire his genius. So, if anything, at least the Rangers fans are united, Swanee. I mean, do you see any way back for Russell Martin?
No, I don't. To be honest, we spoke on this. I think maybe one of the last times I was on, I was just thinking how preposterous it would be to sack a manager in such a short space of time. But the evidence is now just beyond. You can't disagree with what Keith said. I mean, what is the evidence? I didn't see the game today. I was obviously at Celtic Park. I didn't see what happened. But by everything I've heard, subsequently, just roughly speaking to a few boys that had an idea of what was going on, speaking to a couple of boys that were there from Record Sport, it was just the same old. I'm sure that's what Keith has alluded to. The point about Andrew Cavanagh coming out and speaking, I think, is absolutely key, because we all know international breaks are graveyards for football managers. We know that, especially struggling football managers. And this cannot just continue to drone on through the next 2 weeks of, it really needs the leadership to come out and clarify the situation. But if you're asking me, can he survive? I just can't see it. And I'm stunned that I'm actually saying that myself, because the prospect of turning over a manager so quickly is alien to me. I find it hard to believe. But then again, I look south of the border. I think they want rid of Ange Postecoglou from Forest after about 4 weeks. So that's just football now. The bottom line is, every manager can be spared a chance of a bit of bedding in time. This has been catastrophic. What's happening at Rangers? Catastrophic. That's beyond bedding in time stuff. That's recruitment. The guys that have been brought in are clearly not up to it. 1 minute they're playing together as a unit and we're all for one and one for all. The next minute they've no character and all this. I mean, you're getting mixed messages out the manager. Yet the only thing that's not mixed are the performances, which have flatlined low bar. Can't continue.
But Swanee, and this is why, perhaps you thought I was jumping the gun with this. But I'm sorry, you can only base your opinion around the facts. And the facts, where Russell Martin is concerned, is he lasted 16 games last season. So this time last season, Southampton were pulling the plug on him. And for why? Because they were spectacularly unsuccessful. They were a car crash in the Premier League. They were shipping goals left, right and centre. It was all through this stubbornness to stick to his principles and his way of playing the game. And it was making Southampton a laughingstock. Not only did it make Southampton a laughingstock in the Premier League, but it sent them spiralling towards relegation, even though they pulled the plug on it after 16 games. So, and included in all that, Swanee, you had players at Southampton that clearly were being asked to play a style of football which they didn't agree with, which didn't suit them,